tell me that residents, the city breaks even basically on city services for residents, and the businesses kind of take over the load of, everything else. So that's why I'm centering this question on that, because if you're taking away what's covering things that aren't being covered, what are you going to have left?
Sure. And Mr. Mayor, council members, Planning Commission, try to answer that a little bit, probably more of a comment than anything, is certainly we're not trying to remove anything. We're really looking for opportunities where there are infill opportunities, redevelopment opportunities. Certainly your commercial industrial probably will have a higher tax base and generate more taxes for the city versus a single family residential development. So certainly the tax formula is a little complicated and don't really have a whole lot more of the finite details of how that works, but for you. But I think my message, based on what I'm hearing, is just trying to reassure that we're not looking to remove anything. This is really about letting the property owners decide what they want to do and what the market supports. So this is a plan that's trying to align a little bit more with development aspirations, certainly from the residential side, but there's certainly more interest that we've heard, certainly with the business park and more things in there that could happen that bring in more of that tax base. So it's a little bit more of a general statement. I'm not.
But I'm not concerned about single family residential. I'm talking about, what comes to mind is Elk River. I drive through there occasionally, and they built this, what looks like a fairly large condo right downtown on the highway. Would that tax base be the same as what, like I say, a commercial building would be then? Or is that something that, would lower?
Yeah.
Talking,
yep.
It looks like about a 20-unit building.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say generally that is going to bring in a higher tax base, a higher density development. I'm not a tax expert, so that's why I'm kind of struggling with giving you the information you need, but there's certain people in our office that can give a little bit more of that information if that's something that this group is looking for. But generally speaking, I would say certainly a higher density development is going to bring in a higher tax base than a single family type development. But the formula of what a higher density development would bring compared to a larger commercial industry, I don't know what that difference would be. So I apologize, I can't provide that. Sarah, do you want to?
Well, I just, my very little bit of understanding is, yes, I would agree with that. The higher density is going to bring in more than a single family, but the mill rate, it's going to be like classified as a multifamily residential versus a commercial. That's different. I think a commercial use is potentially going to bring in more than housing would. Just by some of the preliminary numbers I've run out, that would be better confirmed by the assessor, but that's just what I've seen. Yeah. Housing is the mill rate on housing is different, or the class rate on housing is different than it is on commercial.
So if we were to allow that sort of development downtown, do you think there should be a limit put on minimum of 20 units in a building? So if a developer wants to come in and put a 12-unit building up, we say, we're really looking for something with a little higher density in it.
It's definitely a point of consideration that the city needs to be aware of, because it could change, but also too the condition, the value of the building. If you have she had commented about how some of the buildings are not in the greatest shape, and if you replace something with a nicer, newer structure, that might be more beneficial in the long run. Plus, we got to understand about bringing in the people, and the people for the jobs to support the other businesses that are located in the industrial park. There's also a value in that. You need the housing to support the businesses that are going to be coming in, or you hope to attract.
And just to clarify, our description of downtown is suggesting a minimum of 24 units per acre.
I
yep.
read that, and I'm just curious on how they came up with that, or is that kind of like a general?
It's kind of a best practice. That's a point of development density that starts to make things work out and pencil out for a developer when you're looking at.
Specific for downtown then, or is it?
That's tailored for a downtown like this. Yep. Numbers are going to vary from community.
Can I just make a comment? another, you talked about how we don't make money on residential development, that's a difficult thing, and a point I think it's worth mentioning is I've been reaching out to various developers, and one of the developers that has done a lot of work in Foley and also does some work in some of the surrounding communities, ran some numbers for me on what he averaged a lot would cost to put infrastructure in. He ran it against like a Becker, a sandy soil condition, estimated roughly 42,000 for the water, sewer, curb, storm, just roughing it. In comparison, because of the needed soil corrections, 55,000. So we do have, some issues regarding our soils and stuff that have to be considered, that when we do residential development, there may be a need for the city to be a partner in that, or we're gonna have to consider those items, because we do have some hurdles that we will come across, when we get those developers in. I just thought that was an interesting tidbit that he shared with me when he ran those numbers, and I do know I've heard that from multiple developers. I thought it was interesting and it was worth mentioning.
Like Sarah said previously, that there's a lot of inquiry on residential housing, people wanting to come in. My thought is, when that happens, that could also create some greater advantages of some smaller businesses. I don't know if that's true, but that's my thinking, that there'd be some possibility of some creation there of the two. So I don't know, is that true, or am I speculating?
I was hoping you articulated that point very well, and that's what I was hoping I'd get across in tonight's presentation, is we feel that same way, that there's gonna be some more opportunities for other commercial uses to come in once we see that housing demand pick up and the development start. So you put it, good words to use.
Anybody have anything else? Well, we'd like to thank you for your presentation.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Appreciate it.
Very good.
If I can just add, if there are any questions or things that come up afterwards, you can always reach out to me, and I can get in touch with Lance too if there's something you think of after you leave.
Yeah, absolutely, please do. This is still working draft, so noodle on it for a little while.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move on to, under Department Reports, Administration, Sarah Brunn. When you get time.
We've been here long enough, right? Okay, I have a couple items. First is the compost site cleanup costs that you had asked me to check into last time. There's a handout, an email, with the costs, and then I also wanted to relay the statute that I got from the chief on this. So this is what we have an option to charge on. Now, considering the cost of the compost site and what it would cost for our attorney to prosecute, we have to weigh that. It's $280, I can't remember, it's $280, $290 an hour for our attorney. And we can only charge at a minimum 2 times and up to, is it 5 times? I'm trying to find my spot here. No more than 5 times. So I think we need to weigh that into the consideration of what the cost, the loss is. Because do we wanna spend $1,000 in legal fees to maybe get 2,000, back? I don't know. So I brought the information back. I guess I'm just looking for direction if you wanna proceed with something. Otherwise, we can let the court process play out, the citation that he's getting issued, and see what happens there.
Mark, how is the new hours working out then?
For the most part, very good.
We still at Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday?
Tuesday, Thursday, we don't have a camera ordered, it's not up yet, but it will be in the next near future. Maybe someday we can look at a gate there, if there's a year we can, and then we charge $25 to $50
So what you're saying, we're probably not gonna recoup our expenses?
I think you're not gonna get hardly any more extra back by doing so, just because of the cost it's gonna take to prosecute.
If they just cover the costs, I would be happy.
Yeah. We can't even guarantee that. They are still gonna get cited though. You know, it's not like they're not getting nothing. They're gonna get cited, they're gonna have a penalty through the state, and we're gonna get a split of that based on the court fees.
So is this a private party or is this a business?
It's a private party.
Private.
Well, if it's gonna be a break even or possibly even lose money on it, I'd just soon let the courts do what they gotta do and we'll be done with it.
Yeah.
If something changes in the next, couple weeks, I'll let you know, but.
Yep.
Okay. Second item, pool operation staffing, you accepted the resignation of our pool manager. We do have interest from our assistant pool manager to fill that position. My recommendation would be that we internally promote and take care of that at this point. Mark and I have spent a lot more time down there, but we have a lot of other things going on, so we can't be down there. And we're not aquatic experts by any means. So I'd recommend we make that move right now. And then, as far as staffing levels go, my conversation with the insurance company and the Department of Health, we are fine with staffing at the recommended Red Cross level, which is 1 guard per 25 people. So there may be the potential for us to reduce a guard on shift. But I do not wanna make that decision internally. I think that needs to be a council decision. If we become, an issue with covering some of our shifts and staying open, that's something I think we would support doing, because keeping it open and available to the public is probably the most important thing. We still have to comply with Fair Labor Standard Acts as far as breaks and stuff go, but I think there is some potential for us to reduce a bit of staffing, while still maintaining the safety requirements as recommended by the Red Cross. So I guess I need two directions or motions from you is do you wanna appoint Emma Brenny as the new manager, and then do you wanna make any movements to the staffing levels, and reduce what we're currently practicing at?
She's had enough experience to take over that position?
She's been the assistant manager. I think she'll do just fine. We are working closely with Amelia, as far as getting our lessons scheduled out, getting as much done as possible. The office staff is gonna help with some of the administrative work. We're picking up some pieces with the full-time staff, so we're trying to keep it as, easy as possible for that position, just because they're coming into it mid-season. But I think we'll be fine as long as we continue to closely monitor it.
So how's everyone else working with the hours that they gotta put in the weekends? Has that gotten a little smoother, or no?
Well, like I told you, I just found out there's 2 days that are in jeopardy, and, it's one Saturday and one Sunday. That's why if we have to move to reduce staffing hours, in order for them to get their hours, they're gonna have to pick up these shifts. I have another meeting with the assistant manager or the new manager tomorrow, and that will be a point of discussion that we need to require these shifts to be filled.
Cause if there's no one that shows up, I'm assuming the manager has to take their place.
Oh, the manager is out on a chair guarding quite frequently. Yeah, that's a typical occurrence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see us appoint her and keep an eye on the staffing levels, make sure if we don't need them all, we don't need like 4.
Right?
We would just reduce by 1 if we can in
Okay.
place.
Daytime hours, right?
Yep.
Yep, that I say we should go with, and
But I'd like that by a motion with the council, just because that's a, critical
Okay,
function of the
I'll make
pool.
that a motion then.
I'll second.
We have a motion and been seconded, any other discussion?
If we don't have enough staff, then it's just gonna get closed, correct? Just like every other business is doing when they don't have enough staff?
Yeah, correct, or we would have to limit the occupancy of the pool. So like if we only had enough for 2 guards, 50, we couldn't take more than 50. So that is, we could still stay open if we have a smaller crowd, but that would be the other alternative.
Any other discussion? Okay, the
Yeah,
motion.
you
is
combined
made.
them both, correct?
Pardon?
You combined that motion into
Yeah.
one? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, next item, police department. We have, been informed of a potential full-time officer leaving.
Oh.
I can't get it on right now. I'm not disclosing the name because it's, the individual came to us just as a courtesy because they know we're shorthanded. That they're being background by another department and may be leaving us sooner than later before the return of the chief, from her leave. So we would like to request, we met as a personnel committee and discussed some options. We would like to request the council to authorize a promotion of an existing part-time officer to a full-time position, if needed, before the next meeting to start that process. We would come back with the name and the information at the August meeting, but in case we need to move quickly to fill shifts, we'll ask the council to authorize that now. So that would be the first request I have, is that we can move forward with the promotion of a part-time officer to a full-time position, if needed.
This officer they have in mind is comparable and able to
Yes.
take that full-time position?
Yep, there is interest, and yes, the personnel committee felt that's a very,
Right.
very good candidate.
I would make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
How short are we on officers then?
Well, if this one leaves, we'll be down to 2 full-time, and we're very short on part-time as well, so which is my next item. So do you wanna finish that motion, and then I can,
Yeah, I asked for discussion on it.
yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
So the part-time situation, if we promote a part-time officer, we also have another part-time officer that's not filling shifts. We are down to, what did we say, 2?
2.
Yep. So that is why, we did immediately post for, part-time officer applications. We have discussed that before. We were hoping we would be fine until the Chief McMillan came back, but because of this move, that's gonna put us too short, and we're afraid we're gonna have way too many open shifts. So we did post, for the hiring of additional part-time officers, and then creating another eligibility list, cause we're down to our last one. So I guess, at this point, I would just like the council to put it in motion that we're moving forward with a part-time eligibility list. We would come back with names on that list, but we wanna get that moving, in case there is some gap, on getting this transition and this full-time person up. We just need to make sure we have a bit more depth, just because of some of the other situations we're running into. And keep in mind, we have an interim chief too, and we don't wanna burn him out either. So would there be a motion to, authorize the new eligibility list?
Motion to authorize a new eligibility list.
I'll second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And I know he's not here, but, the interim chief, Bart Kaufman's been doing a great job. He meets with me, pretty regularly. We're touching base, almost every day. And, he, really wants to make sure we get a handle on things, just so we don't cause any more, any issues with, overloading people with shifts and so forth, because calls are up. He maybe mentioned it too. A lot of mental health calls, a lot of domestics, a lot of things going on, and so we wanna make sure we're adequately staffed to handle those situations, so. That's all. Other than that, I'm still working on compensation study. We're starting budget, and there's gonna be a lot of items within budget this year, regarding some of the compensation study, which I should have more information next meeting. Regarding the land purchase we just made, the water sewer rates, some transitions in the billing cycle there. We have a lot of items to work through budget this year, so, we're getting a handle on that now. I hope to have you something by early August, a preliminary to review, and then we'll have that budget workshop in mid-August and look for a tentative levy in September. But even if we have a few items that are kinda still outstanding, we can set that levy, always lower it, So, you know, we'll get a good handle on it the preliminary levy, and then move forward as we need to, as we get closer to this wastewater bid and some of those items. But other than that, just a lot of stuff like that, and some joint planning board items that are gonna be coming forward soon too as well.
Anybody have any questions for her? Okay, we'll move on to old business. Update on, well, the fiber we discussed already, the wastewater project.
Yeah. Really good news, St. Cloud passed the wastewater treatment user agreement last night at their council meeting, so they accepted us in, that went very well. Through my contact with the city of St. Cloud and some of the other contract cities, seems to be very good support moving ahead with our project, so that's a big hurdle for us. That was needed for us to keep our timeline and for us to get our project certified by the state. So we'll get that project certified, and then bid out, in the coming months, so that's good news. I will ask you to address the St. Cloud wastewater treatment user agreement now. That, has been reviewed by our attorney. He does not have any concerns, he's seen the agreement before. The one item that we are working on, and, I did have a number of conversations with St. Cloud on this, is the timing of our funding and when we pay that connection fee. There does not seem to be any concern with ensuring that we have a bid, a contract, before that connection fee is due. And it doesn't sound like we're gonna have money available to us until December anyways, so that kind of makes it easier. The state is coordinating with the city of St. Cloud as well, so that they are aware of what our funding plan is. I do wanna make a point, we talked about this earlier. We are still moving ahead with interim financing or additional loan financing while we wait for PSIG money. So we had that application on the agenda this morning. We will get the $8 million in direct appropriation right away. We will get the loan, but then what will happen is we will just not draw down on the loan as far, and we'll have that PSIG money come in on the back end, which is anticipated like spring or summer of next year. That's how the state has set it up. I just wanna be clear that we're doing that because we don't wanna wait a whole nother cycle for the project to begin.
So did we get the PSIG money?
We were second from the top of the fundable, so we're on the list, we're eligible as soon as we come into play. So,
So,
the
no, but
we don't have money yet.
maybe.
No, but maybe.
Thank you.
The legislature did not fund it any additional dollars this cycle. But there also is the potential that a project or two ahead of us could not go through, and that would bump us up. When I discussed it with Bolton and Mink, they think we will get money, they just can't, they aren't sure if it's gonna be now or if it's gonna be 3 or 6 months from now.
We've already discussed the fiber project, we'll move on to new business.
I had one thing for old business. Go ahead.
No, you need to act on the wastewater treatment agreement.
Can we get a motion to approve the wastewater treatment user agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Anything else I missed?
Jack, you had something?
I was just comment, well, I don't know why we go in a closed session to bid on a piece of property and then we get outbid by $100. So someone has to be saying something, because the two bids were so far apart, it's not like, that's just my only comment on it.
I agree. I can't believe that happened.
Somehow it happened. Somebody had to let it leak to somebody. Everybody just gotta remember, everything that's said in the room stays in the room. And when you go home, whether you're husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, kids, family, you just don't tell anybody anything. Not anybody, not even if your wife or husband or somebody, whatever, gets mad at you, just live with it, but you can't tell them a thing.
Anybody know who this guy is?
He lives west of town, owns a parcel next to it. West.
I don't know him, but I did some digging in, just picking up some things, but he wasn't interested in the dirt, really. He needed that parcel of land to join he's got another parcel to the west,
The next
my
one,
understanding.
bought last year.
And he's very close to making a deal. So I hope it's to our advantage.
We are trying to make a connection on if there's a potential to purchase Bill from him. So we'll still keep that open, Marcus, and kind of see if we can track him down. Because if he isn't interested in that and we can strike a deal, that might still be advantageous for us.
So much land's he got altogether?
I did not know that top.
That piece there couldn't have been more than what?
What we just bid on,
Yeah,
3 point some acres, 4 acres?
what's
Yeah,
that big?
It's not the crossroads, just that.
I was thinking more like 2.5, but you're talking 3?
There's around 3.
But I don't know what his adjoining property is. Putting them together might be more valuable.
Yeah, from what I understand, he owns property that butts up against that to the west.
Well, and if there is if he does combine parcels and it becomes a commercial development that comes into the city, that's still a win for the city, you know?
Yeah.
And services are pretty close, you know, especially with what we're gonna be doing out there with the industrial park, so it still may be a good thing for the city.
Good possibility.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. Any new business? Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.